And so we were blown away, and then 5 hours later, the jury said they were ready and not guilty on both accounts. I think they really felt my father's heart, and his real purpose was not to hurt anybody. Nobody was actually hurt. My father was charged with 31 felonies and 1 misdemeanor from opening a private collective for medical cannabis patients. In the year of 2015, there was a law that took effect from Act 178 where it amended HRS 329-121 definition of medical use and removed the restriction that distribution be limited between caregiver and patient only. And so my father and his medical cannabis members saw that as a moment of celebration. They said, wow, patients now after 15 years of having a medical cannabis program can actually help each other acquire medicine. And they opened a private collective. They followed federal laws, HIPAA, patient privacy laws, procedures for controlled substances, transferals, and the Cole Memorandum. They followed every law they could find. They wrote letters to the county prosecutor, to the county council, the senators, representatives, the ombudsman, the attorney general, seeking advice and their opinions in the Department of Health. For the most part, those agencies ignored us, but they still went forward with their collective, and the county police department sent in an undercover police officer who had a fraudulent medical cannabis recommendation from a real doctor that we knew, Dr. Berg, for the purposes of entrapping him. They raided the collective. A month later, they took all our members' medicines, and they charged my father with 31 felonies and 1 misdemeanor. He was facing 77 years in prison. It took him 6 years to get out of jail. He almost died in jail. He had to be sent to the hospital immediately when he got out because he was peeing blood and had pneumonia, and he lost his front teeth. And so 4 years later, here we are. We got a jury trial, and every step of the way it was filled with uncertainty and fear and dirty tactics from the prosecutor, threatening our best witnesses. And fortunately, we had a support group that was strong enough to stand with us, and people that came to sit with us every single day. And we still had patients that were willing to testify because either they were old and they said that they didn't have that much longer to live anyway, and that we had helped them so much, we literally saved their lives through their cancer treatments, that they were willing to testify in the face of the threats of the prosecutor. And then our other patients that were willing to testify did so because they were financially prepared to have to defend themselves from the prosecutor. Everyone else was too scared. We had 150 members.
Mike and his group had filed several years worth of motions trying to get the judge and to look at the law that had passed in 2015, and then they called me in like 2017, and I came running up and started trying to help. But it doesn't matter what motions we filed, how much laws we researched, and we tried everything we could. Mike was appointed 7 court-appointed attorneys throughout this whole thing, and none of the first 6 would do anything for him. And we were they had called the jury, and we were there last year, June 18th, with 60 jurors sitting outside, all the police we had subpoenaed, all the witnesses. And then the judge and the prosecutor decided Mike wasn't capable of representing himself, and so they went back and forth, and finally, what to do. I wrote a name on the pad, Stanton Oshiro, and we got the savior, Stanton, appointed, and he was able to get in all this evidence that we had been trying for 4 years to get in. They just blocked every time, and we didn't know how to argue. Mike didn't know how to argue objections, Your Honor, this or that. And so we were struggling, but we were fighting, and then just this last year is just, we learned a lot, and it's just been really stressful. And then we were waiting for 2 days, sweating until the jury found for us, even with the weird jury instructions.
Yeah, it was interesting. Before we had Stanton Oshiro, they weren't even going to allow us to bring up that it was a medical cannabis transfer. and that my father had a medical cannabis card, and so did the undercover officer. They weren't even going to allow us to tell that to the jury. And so with Stanton there, he was able to use his clout to convince the judge that this is a relevant fact of law that the jury should be able to hear.
Right.
The night before the trial started, they dismissed the majority of all of the charges. It was funny because for 4 years, we had been preparing. We had 7 book boxes preparing to have to defend ourselves against every single charge. And we knew that we could. And then the night before, they dismissed it. And then we're all sitting there like, I can't believe they dismissed it. My father started crying.
Because we couldn't talk about it then.
Yeah.
That's the reason they dismissed it, because there was like, you know, all sorts of stuff going on. The ones that are remaining is the transfer 1.5 ounces of medical cannabis to undercover medical cannabis patient, and the E-pen, which tested negative for THC, which the criminalist that was brought in from Texas on the public dime said if an E-pen tests negative for THC, we don't even bother to call it paraphernalia or charge it. Right. So, but they continued on with that charge, 5-year charge. It's not even illegal anymore to have paraphernalia. Yeah. But back in 2015 it was, so they were trying Mike on some old things that anybody can buy at Irie or whatever.
Oh. Yeah, and I think what this comes down to is that the jury saw that my dad wasn't in it for any money. He didn't make any money. He doesn't even have a car. We had our accountant testify to that. And he was able to produce all those records if needed, though the prosecutor wouldn't allow them into evidence. And that he's not a danger to society, and he's a compassionate man trying to help people, and the majority of the people that he was helping were actually hospice patients that passed in the 4 years that when he was arrested 4 years ago. A lot of them had passed.
Not able to get cannabis, not able to get their medicine. A plant which was found safe enough for infants to use in the year 2000, and anybody over the age of 18 could grow it legally as a patient or a caregiver. And we've been fighting for all these years. It's now 2019. Well, the ice and the meth epidemic is out of control, and we got, you know, lying prosecutors telling cops to lie over in Oahu, and we got all this stuff is crumbling, our foundation of justice, and it's got to change. And so that's why we're really happy the jury said not guilty, and we believe this is going to be really, it's going to help 30,000 Hawaii medical cannabis patients.
With debilitating conditions. These are people with debilitating conditions that our state has been criminalizing for 19 years now, since they started the program in 2000. Through this whole process, my faith in the justice system has severely declined. However, my faith in people has not. My faith in people has really gone up.
The jury appears.
We're just so grateful that the jury was able to see through the smoke and mirrors and see that my father is an innocent man and not a danger to society. And we're really thankful that everyone who sacrificed time out of their days to sit with us in that cold room for 3 weeks every day. I mean, one day we had 80 people that sat with us, and these are people that really care about their ability to have choices and their access to medical cannabis.